My parents gave my sister $1 million to chase her dream, then told me to leave because I was a waste of space. I walked away and never looked back. 5 years later, she drove past my beachfront villa. She broke down screaming, "Why does she get everything?" My name is Olivia Bennett. I'm 33 years old, and the day my parents told me I was just taking up space in their home, my younger sister was sitting beside them, signing paperwork to receive a $1 million check. Mom smiled proudly as she watched her. Dad clapped her on the shoulder. "This is your chance to build something extraordinary." Then Mom turned toward me. "As for you, I think it's time you moved out." I remember blinking in confusion. "What?" Dad didn't even look embarrassed. "Your sister needs room while she gets her business off the ground." Mom sighed dramatically. "You've always been independent. You'll figure something out." Then she smiled. "But honestly, you're just wasting space here." For a moment, the room became completely silent. I looked at my sister, Sophia. She didn't say a word. She simply avoided my eyes. I nodded once. "Okay." That was all I said. I walked upstairs, packed 2 suitcases, loaded everything into my old Honda, and drove away. 5 years later, Sophia drove past the home I'd built for myself. She slammed on her brakes, called our mother screaming, and demanded to know one thing: why does Olivia get everything? Looking back, our family had always worked the same way. Sophia dreamed, everyone else financed those dreams. When she wanted horseback riding lessons, Mom found the money. When she wanted a luxury car for college, Dad co-signed the loan and made the payments. When she changed majors 3 different times, nobody complained. She's finding herself. That became the family motto. Whenever I wanted something, the answer was different. Earn it, save for it, work harder. Oddly enough, I'm grateful they did, because they unknowingly taught me something Sophia never learned. No one was coming to rescue me. After graduating with a degree in marketing, I accepted an entry-level job at a small digital advertising agency. The pay wasn't impressive, neither was the office, but I loved learning. I stayed late, volunteered for difficult projects, asked questions, read everything I could. While coworkers spent bonuses on expensive vacations, I quietly invested mine. Not because I was smarter, because I knew what it felt like to have no safety net. Meanwhile, Sophia's interests changed almost every year. Boutique clothing, wedding planning, luxury gift boxes, influencer management. Each new idea was described as the one. Each one ended the same way. Dad always smiled. "She just needs one opportunity." Mom agreed. Success takes time. Nobody seemed to notice how much time and money had already disappeared. Then Grandma passed away. She had lived modestly her entire life. No one expected her estate to be particularly valuable. But decades earlier, she'd quietly invested in commercial property that had appreciated enormously. After everything was settled, my parents inherited just over $2 million. The news changed the atmosphere in our house almost overnight. Mom started browsing luxury vacations. Dad talked about retiring early. Sophia arrived one evening, carrying a thick business plan. "I figured it out." Dad smiled. "What is it this time?" "A luxury lifestyle brand. Personal shopping, exclusive travel planning, private concierge services." She spoke with absolute confidence. "This is different." Mom looked completely convinced. "It sounds amazing." A month later, they handed her $1 million. Not as a loan, not as an investment, a gift. Dad raised a champagne glass. "Go build your dream." Everyone applauded. I genuinely hoped she'd succeed, not because I expected any of the money, because she was my sister. Later that evening, Mom called me into the living room. "Dad and I have been talking." "About what?" "Sophia needs an office." I looked around. "So?" Dad folded his hands. "Your bedroom is the largest." I frowned. "I live here. For now." Mom smiled politely. "You're 33. It's time. I've been saving for a condo." "Wonderful. So this is perfect timing." Then came the sentence I'll never forget. "Honestly, you're just wasting space here." I looked around the room. Neither of my parents appeared uncomfortable. Sophia quietly stared at the floor. Nobody asked where I would go. Nobody offered to help. So I quietly stood. "I'll be gone tonight." Mom actually looked relieved. "Thank you for understanding." I walked upstairs, packed 2 suitcases, collected my laptop, a few framed photographs, the quilt Grandma had made me when I was 16. Nothing else. Before leaving, I paused at the front door. Dad looked up from the television. "Take care of yourself." "I will." Mom smiled. "We're proud of you for handling this so maturely." I nodded, then walked out. That was the last conversation I had with my family. I rented a tiny apartment above a bookstore. The plumbing rattled every morning. The windows leaked when it rained. But for the first time in my life, everything inside belonged to me. I worked harder than ever, accepted promotions, eventually left the agency to start my own branding consultancy. The first year was terrifying. The second became manageable. By the fourth year, large companies were hiring my team for national campaigns. I didn't become successful overnight. There were sleepless nights, failed pitches, clients who disappeared without paying, moments I nearly gave up. But every setback taught me something. Every small victory built the next one. I never called my parents. They never called me. 5 years passed. One afternoon, I was sitting on the terrace of the beachfront home I'd recently purchased after selling my company to a larger marketing firm. It wasn't a mansion, just a beautiful home overlooking the ocean. Exactly the peaceful life I'd dreamed about. As I watered flowers near the front gate, a familiar SUV slowed almost to a stop. Sophia, she stared through the open gates, looked at the house, the gardens, the ocean behind it. Her face turned completely white. Then she grabbed her phone and immediately called our mother. Even from across the street, I could hear her screaming, "Mom, you need to tell me how Olivia could possibly afford this." Sometimes, the people who call you a failure only remember where you started. They never see where you quietly keep going after they stop looking. As my sister stared through the gates of my beachfront home, she wasn't looking at luck. She was looking at 5 years of work she'd never bothered to imagine. Sophia's SUV remained parked across the street. She didn't get out. She simply stared at the house while talking loudly into her phone. I couldn't hear everything she was saying. Only one sentence carried clearly through the open window. "Mom, she has a beachfront house." About 20 minutes later, another familiar car turned onto my street. My parents, they stepped out together. Neither of them looked angry. They looked confused, as if the last 5 years had suddenly disappeared. I walked to the front gate. "Hello." Mom looked around the property. "The realtor said this house sold last year." "It did." "You bought it?" "Yes." Dad frowned. "How?" I smiled gently. "The same way people usually buy houses. I worked." Silence. Mom looked at Sophia. "I don't understand." Sophia crossed her arms. "My business failed." "I know. You knew." "I heard through relatives." She looked away. "The market changed." "I understand." Dad looked back at me. "What happened after you left home?" I answered honestly. "I rented a tiny apartment. I worked during the day, built my consulting business at night. For almost 2 years, I worked 7 days a week. No vacations, no new car, no shortcuts." Mom whispered, "You never asked us for help." I smiled sadly. I didn't think I had any. Nobody spoke. Finally, Dad asked, "You said you sold your company." "I did." "When?" "About 18 months ago." He looked genuinely surprised. "You owned the whole company." "I started it. It grew. Eventually, a larger marketing firm offered to buy it." "So you sold?" "Yes." "I stayed on for a year helping with the transition." Mom quietly looked around again. "So it came from that, and years of saving before that." She slowly nodded. For the first time, she wasn't looking at my house. She was looking at me. "I thought you'd struggle after leaving." "I did. I just didn't quit." Sophia suddenly laughed bitterly. "Must be nice." I turned toward her. "It wasn't. There were months I couldn't pay myself. I lost clients. I almost closed the business twice." She stared at me. "I never knew." "You never asked." The words hung in the air. Dad lowered his head. "We didn't ask either." "No, you didn't." Mom quietly wiped away a tear. "I kept waiting for you to call." "I almost did. So why didn't you?" "Because every time I picked up the phone, I remembered being told I was wasting space." Her shoulders dropped. "I said that." "You did." "I've regretted it for years." I believed her, not because regret changes the past, because I could finally hear it in her voice. Dad looked toward the ocean. "I thought giving Sophia that money would guarantee her future. It doesn't work that way." I know that now." Sophia suddenly spoke. "I spent $1 million trying to look successful." She laughed at herself. "You spent 5 years becoming successful." Neither of us smiled, because she was telling the truth. She looked directly at me. "I was jealous. Not of your house, of your confidence. I never learned how to build anything without someone helping me." I walked over and hugged her. She immediately started crying. "I'm sorry. I know. I should have treated you like my sister, instead of my competition." I squeezed her hand. "It's not too late." A few weeks later, Dad asked if we could have dinner. Just the 4 of us. No extended family. No pretending. Halfway through the meal, Mom reached into her purse. She handed me an envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter. We wanted to say this properly. I unfolded the paper. It wasn't about money. It wasn't about the house. It was simply an apology. Every sentence acknowledged something they'd done wrong. The favoritism, the comparisons, the words they'd spoken the night I left. At the bottom, Dad had written one sentence that stayed with me. We kept investing in dreams instead of character. We should have noticed you were quietly building both. I folded the letter carefully and slipped it back into the envelope. Thank you. Epilogue. Soft piano becomes lighter, carrying peace instead of longing. It's been 4 years since that afternoon. Sophia never reopened her luxury business. Instead, she accepted a management position at a local company. For the first time in her life, she built something slowly. She often tells people it's the happiest she's ever been. My parents also changed, not overnight, but little by little. They stopped comparing us, stopped measuring success by appearances. Today, family dinners are quieter. Kinder, much more honest. Sometimes, Mom still looks around my home in amazement. Not because it's on the beach, but because she finally understands what it represents. Not luck, not inheritance, not revenge, just years of ordinary work repeated every single day. My thoughts. Looking back, the night my parents told me I was just wasting space felt like the end of my world. It wasn't, it was the beginning of my own life. Sometimes, being forced to leave the place you thought was home gives you the courage to build one that truly is. My parents believed giving my sister money would create success. Life taught all of us a different lesson. Money can open a door, but discipline, resilience, and character are what carry you through it. The greatest thing I ever built wasn't my business. It wasn't even the beachfront home. It was the confidence to keep walking forward after the people whose approval I wanted most had stopped believing in me. And in the end, that turned out to be the strongest foundation of all.